How are we gonna get across?
Step aside.
Wow.
Go.
Oh, what happened here? There it is!
Hold! What are you doing? Now its guard is up. Only fire. Only fire. When I tell you to fire.
Let me explain
I'm
why
sorry.
in this video.
Do not be
I
sorry.
think Odin is in disguise of a
better.
deer at the very beginning of 2018, man. I know that seems crazy, but just listen to the video, watch the whole thing, and I promise y'all by the end, you're gonna consider the idea. Maybe you won't believe it, but you will consider the idea. Alright, so the first thing that tells me Odin is this deer is that when we are hunting a boar or Hildisvini in the first game, we see how when Hildisvini is in his boar form, he doesn't look like a usual boar, like he has his own unique color. So that tells me that this deer over here is not no usual deer. It has to be someone who is in their deer form and is inside their domain, right? So that's the first thing that tells me that this deer has to be someone, and I feel like that someone has to be Odin. Now, my second point is that when we look at the eye color of Hildisvini's boar form, we see how it also has blue eyes similar to the ones that Hildisvini has. Now, they don't come in the same form, but I believe that the reason why they don't come in the same form is because when Hildisvini goes into his boar form, his eye color, like his eye shape, it changes a little bit because he's in like a different physical form. So I feel like Odin, who also got blue eyes, when he goes into a different animal form, you know, because we know he can shapeshift, he also gets like an eye color change and eye shape change, which is the reason why even though Odin has like these clear blue eyes in his human form, when he's in his animal form, it takes a different shape. And before I even move on a little more, I even said something like this similar to a video I made, I think a week ago, 2 weeks ago, something like that. I said that Hugin and Munin are Odin because they got the same eye color as Odin. But I feel like when Odin is in his raven form as Hugin and Munin, his eye color changes because he's in a different physical manner, like he's in a different physical form. And because Odin's in a different physical form, I feel like that would explain why even though Hugin and Munin, they got brighter blue eyes, but at the same time, they still him. We just don't realize it, right? So the fact that this deer has blue eyes, similar to the ones that Odin has, and we already see how here, Hildisvini, he got the same blue eyes as Odin, but he has like a different type of blue eyes in his boar form. I don't think it's that far of a stretch to say that Odin, when he's in his deer form, he got these blue eyes that are a little different because he's in the deer form. Like his deer form cannot support those type of blue eyes, or they don't actually fit the blue eyes that he has in his human form. They just take on a different like manner, a different physical change. So the last thing I'm trying to conclude with in this section is that all I'm saying is that when we see someone or some sort of person in the God of War universe, when they shapeshift, they're going to have like a little change in their eye color when they shift into an animal. And that's the reason why I believe that this deer is Odin, right? When we see Odin as Hugin and Munin, he has brighter eyes, and when he's in this deer form, he has like scattered parts of his eye in like blue forms, similar to how Hildisvini. He has pure blue eyes, but when he's in his boar form, it looks a little different, you know? All I'm saying is that when they change their physical state into an animal, they have different eye colors. And on top of that topic, I just want to show one more thing. When Loki shapeshifts into a wolf himself, he maintains those blue eyes. The same thing I feel like we can apply to this deer, especially since Odin can also shapeshift, right? He can shapeshift into a hawk and other animals. And because he can shapeshift into a hawk, that's how I know he can shapeshift into other animals, right? So the fact that this deer has blue eyes tells me that it has to be someone in real life, in the human form, also has blue eyes, right? And the last thing I wanted to show y'all before I get to the next section is that even if you try to you try to say that it's someone else, Odin at the very beginning of God of War 2018, as soon as Kratos breaks down that stave, his ravens are all over the place. And I feel like that deer has to be Odin because Atreus, he already said that he has never seen a boar like that, right? I'll even play the clip here.
But I hit it, didn't I? I did what you said and it looked like it bounced off. Could the boar be magical?
What do you think?
It looked weirder than any boar I've ever seen.
Get after it then. Step aside.
Up there!
So when Atreus says that he has never seen a boar like that, it tells me that in that same regard, he should have not seen a deer like that either. So the fact that a new deer has now appeared, you know, it's giving me that feeling. It gives me that type of mind where I'm like, okay, this deer is an outsider. And if we already see the first outsider in the stave is Odin, I don't think it'll be that much of a stretch to say that, hey, this deer is inside the stave and he's trying to lure them into some sort of area. And I'm going to get back to this in like a different part. But remember, this deer is trying to lure them into a different area and he's trying to get some more information out of Kratos and Atreus. Now, my third point was, here's how I know that this deer, oh my God, this got to be Odin. You see, when we're hunting this deer, we end up killing the deer, right? We go in, Loki or Atreus, whatever you want to call him, stabs the deer and it dies, right? Why is it that just a few quests later, not even that much later, we see the same deer alive somehow? Now, I know y'all gonna say that it could be something else. It could be maybe a different deer. No, these, as I said before, when we see Hildisvíni in his boar form, he looks like that because that is his own unique boar form, which means that only he can look like that in that type of form. We don't see another boar like that in the entire game because we know that that boar was Hildisvíni. And because that boar is Hildisvíni, if we see that boar again, we're automatically going to know it's Hildisvíni, right? It doesn't have to come to our mind that, oh, okay, this boar can be someone else or something else. No, if we see that boar again, it is Hildisvíni, and we know that for sure. So that's what told me that this deer has to be someone specific. But because we saw this deer die, and I said in a different video, I'll even explain it here, Odin can clone himself. When he died in that deer form, he had cloned himself into another deer. I feel like he's soul splitting, which is basically like, I think he's putting his soul in different bodies. He put his soul or like cloned himself with a deer, another deer, and now he is back again, y'all. That's why after we kill the deer over here, we see the same deer, same design and everything, same blue eyes, same white skin, same everything in the exact same spot over here, dog. Look, I forgot to explain this too. See, over here in this image I'm about to show, we see a dwarf. This dwarf is confirmed to be Odin, right? And in the same image, bro, Odin is right there. So I want you to just think about this. Just don't even overthink it or nothing. If this deer is Odin, if this dwarf is Odin, and we see Odin right here, that just tells me right there, boom, Odin can clone himself. And the thing that really like catches me on to this is the fact that this dwarf got the same eye color, the same exact eye color as Odin. So if this dwarf got the same exact eye color as Odin, that tells me a little bit, okay, Odin can probably soul split. You know, eyes are the window to the soul. So if eyes are the window to the soul, that's what tells me that, you know, this deer over here is also Odin with the blue eyes. And I showed y'all with Hildisvíni that when Hildisvíni got them blue eyes, when he goes into his boar form, it takes a different shape. So if we see this deer again after we just we killed it, and Odin is still, he can clone himself. That's what tells me yet this deer is still around, because Odin has cloned himself once again. And he's out here doing this shit for I don't know what kind of reason, but we're gonna find out. Okay, so one last small point before I get to my conclusion. So another reason why I feel like this deer is Odin is because it does the same exact things that Odin's ravens are supposed to do, right? So we look throughout the entire game. For some sort of reason, we always see this deer over and over and over again. It feels kind of similar to how we see Odin's black ravens throughout the entire God of War 2018 game, over and over and over. You see, we see the blue deer right here. We see the blue deer again over here, and we see the blue deer again over here as well. So it's kind of telling me that, hey, this blue deer is around to also get information, and it is Odin who is sending out, well, he himself is this deer, and he's sending himself out in order to get more information on Kratos and Atreus. And the developers and writers, they show us that deer in order to hint at that, right? They want us to see Odin's ravens to make sure that, hey, the player should know that Odin is spying on you throughout the game. And the same thing can apply to the deer as well. The developers, they want us to know, the creators, they want us to know that this deer is spying on us throughout the game. And the reason why this deer is spying on us throughout the game is because it's also Odin in another disguise. And because Odin is in this disguise, we're not supposed to suspect it so quickly. But, sometimes people can pick up on these things. Now, let me get to my final point. You see, when I said before this deer is trying to lure Kratos and Atreus somewhere, I think where that deer was trying to lure Kratos and Atreus was to the old temple that we see at the beginning of the game, right? You see, the reason why I feel like this is Odin is because I know this needs a lot of background info. I probably should have made a video on it itself, but Odin wanted Ragnarok to happen. He wanted his own death to happen. And I feel there's so many reasons why, Odin would want Ragnarok to actually happen. But I feel like the most important, the most backed up answer is because he knows that if he dies at Ragnarok, he can defy his fate. And also on top of that, if he defies his fate, he is no longer bound to prophecy. So there's not any single written word or document that can be made that can dictate his own future. So what Odin does is that because he knows of his own death prophecy, he knows that he's going to very likely die at Ragnarok. He allows it to happen. And to allow that to happen, remember, we need Atreus, Loki, to make that happen. Because we see in the Ragnarok game, we see multiple times, a whole lot of times, that Loki is basically the person who makes Ragnarok happen. So in order to make Ragnarok happen, we need to think about the things that Loki had to see in order to make sure he can bring about Ragnarok. And it just so happened that inside that old temple was the Ragnarok prophecy, man. Look at this, bro. So right here, this is the old temple shrine in 2018. Right here, we just see the cover story. We don't see the real story inside, but we just see the cover story. Now over here in the Ragnarok game, we see Atreus, he sneaks out, he goes to see other things while Kratos doesn't know, and he comes across the shrine, he touches it, and they go inside to see the real story. And inside that shrine, they find out some information that can help them at Ragnarok, right? But in order for that to happen, remember, that deer had to go inside that temple and they had to see that shrine. And because Atreus remembers that shrine, he knows that there are secret stories inside for Kratos and Atreus to see. And look, over here, watch this.
Up there! You went to the old temple, but Mom told me never to go in there.
We do what we please, boy. No excuses.
Now, there's no confirmed reason why Faye told Atreus to go into that old temple, but I personally think these two reasons I have, they apply the most. So the first reason why is because if you watch that other video on my channel, I feel like Odin is the real father of Atreus. And if Atreus sees that old temple shrine, if he sees that old temple prophecy, he's going to find out that there's a way to kill Odin without him even knowing that Odin is his real father, right? As I said in that video earlier, I said that Faye and Odin were married, but Faye obviously kept this a secret from Atreus. And when they went on their journey, when Kratos and Atreus went on their journey, Ragnarok is not supposed to happen, right? So in order to make sure Ragnarok doesn't happen, one of the steps to make sure it doesn't happen is that Loki doesn't go into that old temple. And if Loki doesn't go into that old temple, Ragnarok, all the events of Ragnarok probably don't even happen at all, because there's no urge to actually kill Odin if they don't find out they have an advantage to kill Odin, right? But unfortunately, Odin has manipulated the events of the game, just like LaFay said in her trailer. She said that if there was another mask, their path isn't safe. And I can probably correlate that to Odin becoming the deer and going inside the protection stave once he found out he was able to be how's it called? He's able to intercept it. He's able to go inside the protection stave. Once he finds out he can do that now, he goes inside and he allows Loki to see that prophecy in order to make sure that Loki does the things necessary to actually get that mask together. And on top of that, there's also another reason, a part of this reason too. I'll be quick on it though. If the Giants were the one who made that prophecy for Loki to see, and Kratos as well, as I said in a different video, the Giants are evil. We're going to find out they're evil. And the reason why they're evil is because the Giants have tricked Loki into killing his father, right? And now that Loki is going to find out that he's been tricked into killing his father, Odin, what's going to happen is that Odin, who we know with so much evidence, there's so much information proving that Odin has allowed Ragnarok to happen and he's still alive, he's going to come back and tell Atreus the truth. And when Atreus finds out the truth, he's going to start killing his own people, which is what Faye did not want to happen. And on top of killing his own people, he might even become a servant, a prominent servant of Odin. He's going to become something that he did not even want to be himself. But after finding out the truth, he's going to do things that he thought he would never do. So that's the first reason. Faye told Loki not to go into that old temple in order to make sure that he does not kill his father, and then a whole bunch of other bullshit does not happen, right? Now, the second and the more obvious reason is because we know Odin already wants Ragnarok to happen. I already kind of said this in my first reason, but Odin, he wants Ragnarok to happen, and he's already seen the prophecies, he's already heard them, he already knows that his son, Loki, is going to make it happen. And as I said earlier in this video, if he allows himself to die, he is no longer bound by prophecy. So he disguises himself as that deer to give them a reason to go into the old temple and see that shrine. So that's the second reason. He disguises himself as a deer and goes into the shrine so that way they can see that Ragnarok prophecy. But obviously, we know that Faye knew Odin. Even if you don't agree that they were married and had a trace together, we obviously know that Faye must have known Odin. And she knew that Odin would pull some bullshit like this. She knew that Odin, with how deceptive he is, with how mischievous he is, she knew that Odin would try to pull something like this. So he makes sure to tell Atreus to never enter that old temple. And see, I even got some evidence that she did not want Atreus to go into that old temple. You see, inside this Fae dream, we see that the path to go into the old temple is blocked. And it's not blocked by any destroyable item. It is blocked by a huge rock, a huge boulder, whatever you want to call it, right? And this even tells me that a god that was probably Odin went into the protection stave. In order to move that rock and give them a path into the old temple, it needs to be someone strong. And who specifically do you think he who could do that, right? Odin. Odin moved the rock, pushed it aside, put it somewhere else, so that way he can be the deer, go into the old temple while they're watching, so they can see the deer go into the old temple and give them a reason to go into the old temple. And then boom, just like that, Odin's plan to die at Ragnarok starts. So yeah, that's my second reason. Odin wanted Atreus to see that prophecy in order to make sure Atreus kills him and allows Ragnarok to happen, and then Odin gets all the benefits. Obviously he's going to lose a lot of things, but he's going to get so many more benefits from defying his fate, being the only character in the series to ever defy his fate. So before I finish this video, I think there's like maybe 2 to 3 small extra things I wanted to say. So the first thing is that I feel like Odin imprisoned Hildisvini. Like, I feel like Odin has imprisoned Hildisvini, and Hildisvini is actually working against us. I'm not really entirely sure of this, but I'm kind of led to believe this when you really think about it, because, you know, Hildisvini can turn into an animal, he can shapeshift, and Odin can do it as well. So I feel like Odin was working with Hildisvini at one point in time, and he probably took control of him, and now not only has he learned Hildisvini's spells and magic, he can also do things to control Hildisvini, and that's why Hildisvini got them blue eyes, man. Just like the dwarf that had blue eyes was under control of Odin, I feel like Hildisvini might be under the control of Odin too. But his blue eyes, there could be a different reason for it, so I'm not going to say 100% yet. I'm not really going to make like a whole video explaining it, but I'm just going to keep that in mind. And the second thing is, I feel like the deer could have been a giant. It may have been a giant because all of this information would correlate with a secret giant like Angerboda trying to make sure that Loki is following the right steps to make sure he kills Odin. So this deer could have been a giant as well, but I'm more keen to the idea that it could have been Odin. So I just want to point that out too, just in case anyone has that and like the idea in mind. And yeah, that'll be all. Oh, and one last thing before I really end the video. So I was recording, and in order to offer more of an explanation as to how Odin has imprisoned Hildisvini, I just remembered this, right? So throughout the game, there actually is a sign that Odin is learning from his own prisoners, right? Like he's learning from his disguises and his own prisoners. So look at this attack that the Dark Elf King uses on us, right? Now look at this attack that Odin uses. Now y'all can say what you want, but I definitely feel like Odin has learned this type of move from the elves themselves, especially when you look inside the Aesir prison in Niflheim and you see a dark elf in there. I feel like when Odin was in prison, when Odin was in disguise as a dark elf, he saw that move from the Dark Elf King, and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna use that myself. So that's just one reason why I feel like, hey, I think Odin is actually learning from his own disguises. Like he's learning his own enemies' moves, and that's one example of it. So if we got this one example of it, I don't think it'll be that crazy to say that, hey, Odin, he's learning these things from his own enemies, like Hildisvini at one point. Because, you know, Hildisvini is still an enemy, but maybe he was spying on Hildisvini and he found out how to shapeshift himself. So we don't, just be keen to the idea. Like, just think about it for a second. Don't try to dismiss it that easily. Maybe he was spying on Hildisvini and he found out how Hildisvini and Freya and all these other Vanir people, they shapeshift. And because of that disguise he was in, he found out how to shapeshift himself. So yeah, that's just one example of how Odin is learning from his own enemies, man. Now, this is the last thing I wanted to say. Whenever we see the deer in the game, it's always around 2 other real deer. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, man, what if that's a parallel to the fake Tyr and how he's always around people that we perceive to also be normal or like an ally? Like when the fake Tyr is with us, we think that the fake tear is one of us, but in reality he isn't. And I'm thinking about that, and I correlate it to the what could be the fake deer, and I say, okay, this fake deer is around these these normal looking deer, because the fake deer wants to seem like it is a normal deer, when in reality it's someone impersonating a deer. And I feel like they made that parallel between the fake deer and the fake tear because they want us to know that the reason why this deer looks like it's trying to like be along with a pack that isn't supposed to be his is because it's a deer in disguise, and that deer is in disguise of Odin. Like Odin is in Odin is in disguise of a deer, and they're trying to make it look similar to the fake tear. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this is intentional. Like, I'm not really sure of this, like my other reasons, but I feel like if it is true, I can see how it works. Like, I can see how they made this fake deer follow normal deer, and then we have fake tear following the normal crowd. So that's the last thing I wanted to say.